everybody, good morning and welcome to the class. Thank you for attending and happy St. Patrick's Day. I have a little badge here you can see with Ireland and the shamrock and America, and I have some special shamrock as well, which is very typical. So it's a big day in Ireland. Normally it's a very big celebration with a big parade and lots of parties, but this year of course it's different and the celebration is more online and at home. So thank you again for connecting. It's a holiday in Ireland, so some people are not working. So maybe it's a good opportunity for you to watch the class. Of course, it's difficult moments with the restrictions and the pandemic. So everybody has got difficult maybe conditions and situations, but hopefully we can continue and everything will be fine. The structure today is very similar compared to the other classes, and we will continue little by little every day. Yesterday it was a little difficult at the end to speak, to have a conversation on Zoom because we had some family in the garden. So finally it was difficult yesterday to practice some speaking, but depending on time and hopefully today we will have the opportunity. It's possible to connect with Zoom. So at the moment I am using Zoom on Facebook Live, so I'm using the two applications. So if you want to participate in the class, if you prefer to watch the class on Zoom, you can join, no problem, and the code is on the bottom. It's the ID code 827-3810-9577 and the passcode also, so that's a possibility. Social media, so on the left we have all the social media accounts. Instagram, every morning I post a picture and a couple of pictures every day on Instagram, and you can join and you can follow here if you want, also on Twitter and YouTube as well. So hopefully there's no problem today with the connection, with the Wi-Fi, with the computer and the technology. Hopefully everything is fine. It's possible we have some disruption with the dog and maybe family as well, so hopefully it's not a big disruption, but everybody I think at the moment has difficult working conditions, so most people are working from home, so there's different situations. Today will be very similar compared to the other days, and I hope you enjoy the class. So I'm going to show you. First is the agenda. So this is the agenda for today. We have introduction document in relation to grammar. After the introduction document, we will continue with the article, a new article today from the New York Times, and of course the topic is St. Patrick's Day, of course, because there's no other event happening today. And then after the article we continue with a list of phrasal verbs and a list of idioms. So that's the plan for today, and again speaking practice is possible if you want, and if you have a question you are welcome to ask a question on Zoom. Like yesterday we had the participant asking questions with the text on Zoom, and that's a very good possibility for you also if you want. So that's the plan. So I guess we will continue and we will begin. So I hope you're having a good morning and I hope everything is going okay for you. And I hope you're enjoying your week. The summer is nearly here, so the weather is improving a little, and yeah, I hope everything is fine. The subtitles are available. If you want to follow me with my conversation and with my words, you can use subtitles and captions on Facebook Live. The majority are correct, but there are some errors in relation to the captions and the subtitles. Okay, so here's the screen, and here you can see my introduction document. So for me this document is the most important, and it's the base of English. So especially in my class and during the classes there's a particular structure. The first area is use of English, the second area are tenses, different tenses in English, and the third area is different grammar concepts and very important terminology and phrases. Okay, so first I will explain the first section, which is use of English, and that is the plan. Okay, so I understand first it's very difficult sometimes to learn English. English can be really hard language to learn, and maybe you have spent a long time studying English since school and you're frustrated because you cannot speak very well or you do not understand English. So I understand it's very frustrating for a lot of people. I want to help. Hopefully it's a good opportunity for me to help, and every day my idea is to continue with the free classes, and to give you some advice and to give you some guidance in relation to the classes, okay? Because it's very difficult, I know, and it's not easy. It takes a long time to progress, but you need maybe a good attitude and you need to be positive, and hopefully you can learn a little by little by little, okay? So this section for me is the most important. It's called use of English. In use of English, we have two particular areas. Phrasal verbs is one area, and the second area are idioms. So for me, in relation to conversation and to understand native speakers and fluent speakers, this area is definitely the most interesting, and I recommend absolutely that you focus on this area a lot, because really it reveals a lot of the vocabulary that we use in fluent conversation. Okay, so one example are phrasal verbs. So phrasal verbs are a verb plus a preposition, and it's possible a completely different significance, a completely different significance with a phrasal verb. So they're very important because we use phrasal verbs every day, every moment, in formal situations and also in informal situations. We use them all the time. They're very short, they're very small, sometimes they're difficult to catch, and for this reason they are fundamental and very important because they change the significance of the sentence completely. Okay, here is just a few examples of phrasal verbs, but we have thousands and thousands of phrasal verbs, and you can see at the bottom there is a list on a PDF document, but on the internet you have a lot of material available to see phrasal verbs, but really they are so important and so common. So of course you are familiar with the phrasal verbs if you have attended this class before, but it's possible today is your first day. So if today is your first day, thank you very much for attending and I hope you enjoy. But this document is the key, and this document is very important, okay? Idioms. So also idioms are extremely common in conversation. They're very frequent, and we use idioms all the time in most situations. It's possible informal situations, possible formal situations, and we use idioms to make English funnier and to make English more interesting, more entertaining, and less boring and less normal. So idioms are very creative, and again you can see a small list here of idioms, but we also have a huge list of idioms with thousands and thousands of idioms that we use all the time. So it's a big list, and little by little I hope you will recognize and become familiar with the idioms and the phrasal verbs. English is spoken in many different places. So we have English in Australia, and the accents in Australia are very different compared to the accent in Ireland, the United Kingdom, the United States. So this is a big difficulty when you're learning English, the different dialects, the different accents, and that's very hard when you are trying to understand a conversation, a movie. And I try to help with this topic, but also for me in relation to accents, of course I am from Dublin, so it's possible some particular accent issues in Dublin, and for example the U is possibly very strong in Dublin and the pronunciation is maybe Dublin, butter, bus, must, and for me sometimes this is the situation. However, phonetically it probably should be Dublin, butter, bus, must. So there's a little difference in my accent with the U. Similarly with the TH, phonetically the TH could be this, that, these, those, and for me and sometimes in Ireland it's like a D, this, that, these, those. So just a curiosity and very interesting example of different accents and the challenges of pronunciation when you try to learn English, okay? Also, the O is possibly very strong for me now, how, and sometimes it's different for other people. Okay, so that area, use of English, I think for sure is really important, and maybe the most important area when you are learning English. Finally, conversation and pronunciation is important. So, of course, when you are learning English, you need to practice conversation frequently, and hopefully you have the possibility to speak with somebody in English regularly, and this is a good activity for you to practice to improve, and it's very important. And during the class, hopefully I can help sometimes with participating. People can participate by practicing speaking during the class, and maybe towards the end of the class we can have some debate and some conversation. And in the future, it's definitely a possibility to create specific classes for speaking practice, because it's very important, okay? And of course, pronunciation. So sometimes in English, pronunciation is irregular, and I try to help during the class to focus on the specific pronunciation problems, and hopefully that will help you, okay? So that area is very, very important. It's called use of English, and for me, it's really the most important. The next section are tenses. So if you are familiar with studying, if you are familiar with grammar, probably you are familiar with the concept of the simple, the perfect, the continuous, the infinitive, the conditional, and the active and the passive. So of course, if you have studied, you are probably familiar with these concepts. However, not everybody is familiar with the concepts, and of course people have very different levels of English. So some of you probably can speak naturally, can speak no problem, but you are not familiar with the concepts, and some of you have a very low level of English and a low understanding of grammar, but of course some of you understand everything perfectly. But also for native speakers, for example, in my family, with my friends, it's very normal and it's very possible for native speakers not to be conscious and not to be aware of the grammar topics and the grammar concepts. So it's interesting, but if you really want to understand a language, French, Japanese, English, Irish, any language, you need to understand the structures. And this introduction is just an explanation of the structures in English. Okay, so the tenses, the different times when you speak. Do you speak in the present? Do you speak in the past? Do you speak in the future? So we have some interesting and important concepts when we speak in English in the tenses. For example, the simple, we have the present simple, which is one action you do in the present and usually regularly. I drink, I eat, I go. That's the present simple. We have the past simple, which unfortunately we have a lot of irregular verbs in the past simple, and this is really difficult to learn because it's necessary to be familiar and to understand perfectly all the past irregular tenses. For example, eat in the present, ate in the past. So there are a lot of irregular tenses in the past, irregular verbs in the past simple, because the normal regular verb, the regular construction is just ed. For example, look in the present, I look, and the past is I looked. That's the regular. But we have a lot of irregular verbs in the past simple. The future simple is usually created by two possibilities. Normally it's will plus the verb. I will go, I will eat, you will have, you will drink. That's the future simple. And the second possibility is going to. I am going to eat, I am going to drink, I am going to go. So there's two possibilities for the future simple. Past simple, irregular, and present simple. The next idea is the continuous. We have the present continuous, which is one action you do continuously in the present. So of course at the moment I am speaking, I am talking, I am boring you. So the present continuous, the structure is the subject, the extra auxiliary verb to be, and the gerund of the verb. The gerund of the verb you can see here, that's the technical name for the ing. So I am eating, I am drinking, I am going. The future continuous is possible in the structure, in the activity continuously happening in the future. I will be eating, I will be going, I will be drinking. and the past continuous is a similar concept, except the verb to be is in the past. I was eating, I was drinking, I was talking. Okay, so that's the idea of the simple: present simple, past simple, future simple, present continuous, past continuous, future continuous. The next idea is the perfect. So we have the present perfect and we have the past perfect. We also have the future perfect, which is a little advanced. But first, the present perfect is usually the period in the past. It's finished, it's completed, but the consequences are relevant to the present. And the structure is subject, extra verb have, auxiliary verb have, and the participle of the verb. You remember the gerund is the ing for the continuous, but for the perfect, we need the participle, which is the third column. So in school, you learn the verbs go, went, gone. So the third column is the participle, and that's used for the perfect construction. And one example is, I have just spoken to my family. So I is the subject, have is the auxiliary, spoken is the participle, and just is representing time, like the adverb. But it means that it started in the past, it's finished, but it is related to now because maybe the topic or the conversation is still relevant to the present. In the United States, they do not use the present perfect very often. They normally just use the past simple. So in reality, it's not a big difference between the past simple and the present perfect, but you just have to be familiar and understand the concept. We also have the idea of the past perfect. So the past perfect is the period in time in the past that's finished, that's completed, usually before another action in the past simple. And the structure is very similar from the present perfect, except the extra verb have is in the past. I had spoken to my family before I started the class. Okay, so that's a little difference between the past perfect and the present perfect. The future perfect is possible. It's a little more advanced, but it's the same idea. I will have spoken to my family before I will go to the shop. So just interesting concept and interesting idea of the perfect. You need to contemplate and you need to think about it because it's very frequent and very, very common in English. And during the class, I see the perfect frequently. Okay. The next concept and idea is the infinitive. So basically, the infinitive in English is the base of the verb, and normally the infinitive has two in English: to go, to eat, to have, to drink, to talk, to speak. So the infinitive is normally two: to go, to eat, to drink. Okay, and during the class, I mention a lot the infinitive and I refer to the infinitive very frequently. We have a particular area in English called the conditionals. Okay, and the conditional is basically related to if and the different tense. So, for example, rain. If it rains today, the consequence, I will not go to the city centre. If I spoke past simple with my friend yesterday, I would have mentioned the football. So the conditional in the book, in the theory, is very heavy. A lot of detail for the conditional in the book, and sometimes it's very depressing. It's very sad because it's very difficult. But in reality, it's a little more flexible. It's less strict in reality. Basically, it's connected to if. Okay, so I have sympathy if you have to study the conditional because it's tricky and there are a lot of rules and it's very unattractive. Okay, but in reality, the conditional is quite frequent and quite common. And during a specific webinar on Mondays, we have a specific grammar webinar at 4 o'clock, and I focus on specific topics every Monday in a grammar webinar. So you are welcome to participate and welcome to join. And the conditional is one frequent topic that arises or that appears in the grammar. Okay. The final idea that is very frequent in English and very creative and very impressive is the idea of the active and the passive. And I think in other languages you have the active and the passive, particularly Spanish and Portuguese. So basically, the concept of the active is the subject, okay, the subject, the verb, and the object. This is considered the active sentence. And then to create the passive sentence, you change the position, and the subject is at the end and the object is at the beginning. You introduce an extra verb auxiliary to be and the participle of the original verb. And here's one example. So the man is the subject, kicked is the past simple of the verb, and the ball is the object. So that is the active. The man kicked the ball. It's the past simple. So because it's the past simple, the extra auxiliary verb is necessary in the past, was, plus the participle of the original verb. So kick is the verb, the past simple is kicked, and the participle also is kicked. So kick, kicked, kicked. And for this reason, we change the position of the subject and the object. So the man kicked the ball. In the active, changes to the ball was kicked by the man. Just an interesting concept, and probably you might be familiar for sure in speaking. You are definitely familiar with this, but it's a very impressive structure and very good. So if you are doing an exam and you want to impress with a variety or a range of grammar, the active and the passive is extremely frequent and extremely important to use. Okay, they are the two most important areas. Of course, the use of English and the tenses are very, very important. The next area is grammar in general. So there are some concepts and technical vocabulary in relation to grammar that is so fundamental for you to understand and to be aware and to be conscious, especially when you are studying a language. And in English, we have some terms, for example, a noun, article, countable, uncountable, adjective. We have a lot of technical names, but a noun first is a person, a place, or a thing. So, for example, badge, ring, noun, noun, jacket, noun, shamrock, noun. So every noun, you normally need an article. And in English, we have two articles. We have a or the. Okay, and a is in general, pronunciation is possible, a or a. So a house or a house is the indefinite article because house is the noun. And then you can say the house when it's specific. So I want the house means a specific house. Okay, and that's the definite article. So there's two possibilities. Here you can see a house or the house. There is one rule: when the noun begins with a vowel, a, e, I, o, u, the vowel, when the noun begins with a vowel, it's necessary to have the article an, and that is the general rule. There are some exceptions, but it is a general rule. There is the idea in relation to nouns. We have the concept and the idea of countable and uncountable. So is it possible to count the noun or is it impossible? For example, pen, jacket, badge, flower. One pen, one jacket, one badge, one flower. Countable. It's possible to count. Okay? But water, it's not really possible to count water because we never say one water, two water. Normally, we say one bottle of water, one glass of water, 1 liter of water. So there's a difference between countable and uncountable. And that is very important, particularly in relation to how much and how many. Okay, so how much is related to uncountable, how much water, how much chocolate, how much air, okay, how much money. But many is related to countable, how many days, how many weeks, how many badges, how many pens. So it's just interesting, and it's very important you are aware of the difference between countable and uncountable. A lot is possible for the two. You can say a lot of air, a lot of water, a lot of badges, a lot of pens. So it's flexible. So probably if you have a doubt, a lot is more acceptable and understandable. So the noun and the article. We have the adjective. So the function of the adjective is to describe the noun. And the position of the adjective is before the noun. Okay, so house, the house. Now we need an adjective to describe the house. Is it beautiful? Is it big? Is it small? Is it red? It's expensive. Okay, so the expensive house. So the position of the adjective is before the noun, and this is important because in Spanish and Portuguese, I think it's different. The position of the adjective is after the noun, so that's very important. The idea also of the adjective, we have the comparative and the superlative. Okay, so you are happy, but this person is happier than you, but this person is the happiest. Okay, so that area is very important. The regular rule is ER for comparative and est for the superlative. But it is irregular because it depends on the syllable. If it's one syllable, for example, big, bigger than, biggest. But if it's two syllables, we use most. Interesting, more interesting than, the most interesting. So that's very, very interesting and very important area, the comparative and the superlative in relation to the adjective. The next area we have is the adverb. So the function of the adverb is to describe the verb. Okay, we have a lot of verbs: to eat, to drink, to talk, to jump, to walk. We have a lot of verbs, but the function of the adverb is to describe better the verb. Okay, and usually the adverb is ly. And here is an example of some: quickly, slowly, softly, rapidly, happily. That's typically adverb because the ly. So the verb to drink, quickly, talk, slowly. Very important function to describe the verb. We have another particular area of English, specific verbs called modal verbs. And modal verbs are very common and very, very frequent in English. Basically, there is a list of modal verbs. Can is number one. It's related to ability. So I can go to the city centre. It's my ability and permission. We can walk on the street. It's permission, but ability. I can play the piano. I can swim for 2 hours. So it's ability. Could, may, and might are for possibilities, and they're very, very similar. So options and possibilities. I could go to the city centre. It's an option. It's a possibility, but maybe not. Okay. I may go to the city centre. I may talk to my friend. I might talk to my friend. Options and possibilities. So it's not obligation. It's not ability. It's an option. Okay. May and might are probably a little more formal and a little more polite. That is the only difference between could, may, and might, and they're extremely frequent. You need to be very, very aware of them. Shall is typically similar to will, and it's usually for a question. Shall we go to the city centre? Shall we watch the television? Shall. So it's typical like will. It's a little formal, but again, it's extremely frequent that we use it all the time. Should is typical for advice and recommendation. So the situation for advice, when you give advice to a friend, when you give a recommendation to a friend, normally in English we use the verb should. You should watch the television. You should contact your friend. You should read this book. Okay, so that's the typical verb for recommendation and for advice. The second verb is the same significance, but the pronunciation is a little strange because the G normally is G, like garden, go, but in this situation it's silent. Excuse me. And the pronunciation is ought to. So you ought to watch this television program. You ought to visit your friend has the same significance as you should. Must is obligation. You must collect the children. You must contact your friend. You must do this. It's obligation. You have no choice. It's the same as have to. You have to collect the children. You have to watch the television. Obligation. The big, big rule and the most important rule with the modal verbs is the next verb. Okay, so normally the next verb is infinitive: to go, to eat, to drink. But when we have a modal before another verb, we always eliminate to. So the correct structure: must go, might have, may speak, could talk. That's correct. The error is may to go, might to talk. That's the error because after the modal it's necessary to eliminate to. And it's incredible the quantity and the number and the amount of times people forget this rule. And it's very obvious, and it's the biggest rule in my opinion in relation to modal verbs. Okay, so that's a little tip and advice for free. So the next section are prepositions. So in English we have approximately 150 prepositions. They are very, very small words. They're tiny words, but they change the significance of the word and they change the significance of the sentence incredibly. And they're very small, but usually they are associated with movement, with direction, and with position. So they're the three areas: for movement, for direction, and position. For example, the verb to talk. I talk in general, but you need direction. Talk to you, talk to him. The same with look. When you look, you need specific direction. Look at you, look at the television. So prepositions are very important, and the same with movement, to go across, to go under, but also for position. The ball is on the table, under the table, over the table, below the table, beside. So prepositions are very important, and especially in relation to phrasal verbs. You remember phrasal verbs are the verb plus the preposition, which has a literal significance, but it's possible a second completely different significance. Okay, so phrasal verbs are very important, and the prepositions are a big part of the phrasal verbs, and usually the preposition is associated with emotion in relation to the phrasal verb. For example, up is positive, up is creation, up is happy, down is negative, sad, depressing, destruction. So there's definitely a connection with emotion in relation to the prepositions. Okay. The next area is typically confused and very frequent, the confusion. And the first area is possessive adjective. So for example, my hat, your hat, his hat, her hat, our hat. But here we have the possessive pronoun. So the difference between my hat and the hat is mine. Okay, the hat is yours, the hat is his, and the hat is hers. This area, his, her, his, hers, him, her, are the most frequently confused. So this area you need to be very, very clear. And the final example is the pronoun, the object pronoun. So my hat, the hat is mine, or give the hat to me. So there are three different areas that you need to be very, very sure, because they are frequently confused, and the quantity of times, the amount of times people make the error is incredible also. Okay. Then we have a small difference between this, that, these, and those. So again, the pronunciation is th, this, that, these, and those, but maybe in Dublin it's like a d, this, that, these, and those. So just be a little careful with the Dublin accent in relation to this. There is a difference between singularity and plural and position. So this hat here, this hat, singular, that hat in a different position, these hats plural here, and those hats plural away. So really they're very different. They're very similar at the same time, but they're very important, the difference. Similarly, the difference between another, other, the other, and the others is a very, very frequent confusion and a very frequent error also. So another is typical before the noun in the singular, another day, another week, another year, and other is typically before the noun in the plural, other weeks, other years, other people, other days. So very, very important difference. When you have a selection of two things, do you want this coffee or do you want the other coffee? So it's possible the other when you have a selection or a choice of two things, and the others is typically a group of people. So do you want to go to the parade, the St. Patrick's Day parade, to watch the parade with us, or do you want to go with the others? So it's very important difference, the four. And they are the most important introduction topics for today. Also, the final area that's very important in my opinion is the suffixes and the prefixes. So if you want to master English and you want to learn very quickly, I recommend you focus on the suffixes and the prefixes of the word, because the suffix will reveal, it will indicate, it will show the form of the word. Is it verb? Is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Is it an adverb? Normally the suffix is a big indicator. For example, ly is usually the adverb, ize is usually the verb, able is usually adjective, ance is usually noun. So this area is a big indicator and a very important tip for you to learn English very, very well. And it's a typical error for people frequently to confuse the suffixes. So it's something small, but it's a big area as well. Writing is an important skill, and writing is completely different from speaking. So writing, speaking, listening, and reading are four very, very important areas, and you are welcome to practice some writing and to send some writing, and I can correct some writing for you, and that is a big area of English for sure. Okay. Also, exam preparation is very popular, and the Cambridge exams are very difficult and very popular, but they're very interesting. Similarly with the IELTS exams, they're very popular, and I have created specific webinars in relation to exams. For example, today at 4 o'clock, we have a specific webinar in relation to the IELTS exam at 4 o'clock in Dublin, and it's on Zoom, and it's for approximately 1 hour, and we will look at different parts of the exam, the reading, the listening, the speaking, the writing, and grammar aspects. And last week we started, I think today is our third webinar for IELTS. Everybody is welcome. You are welcome to join, no problem. There's a small fee of €2.90, but it's very good value and very, very cheap. And if you want to participate, just contact me to reserve your place and I will give you the details. So that is today, the IELTS webinar at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow we have the Cambridge Advanced webinar, and Friday we have Business English, Saturday the B2 First Certificate webinar, and Monday is typical grammar, and yesterday is typical sports and football. Okay, so they are the most important aspects in relation to introduction. Now I want to show you one article, a normal news article in English, to identify the grammar features and to identify the grammar aspects of the article, and also vocabulary and expressions. So it's a typical article and it's from the New York Times, and the topic of course is St. Patrick's Day, similar to yesterday. Okay, so here is the title, and first I will read the article for pronunciation. I will read a few paragraphs and then I will analyze the vocabulary and the grammar. Okay, so remember, you are welcome to join the meeting. If you want to participate in the Zoom meeting, you are welcome to join, and I will just chat just to keep the meeting active because sometimes it disconnects. And I'm just going to write hello everybody, and it's just to keep the meeting active. But that is the code. You can also see the code here on the left, and here is the article. So again, I will read just for pronunciation: a pandemic St. Patrick's Day parade, and it's from the New York Times. That's the journalist, and it's this morning, very, very early. Okay, so first they describe the weather. So the weather in New York: spotty drizzle. So very interesting vocabulary. You remember the verb to spot is to identify, and that's the first significance, to spot. But if in relation to rain you use the adjective, because the adjective is maybe spotty. And remember a spot, for example, my soup, I drink my soup and I spill, I have a spot here, a spot here. So if the rain is spotty, you can imagine the significance is not constant. Some rain here, some rain here. So just a little rain is possible spotty rain. Drizzle is very important vocabulary. So drizzle is the typical type of rain that's very light and very soft. So today there is a lot of drizzle, has the significance very soft, very light rain. Okay, so drizzle is light or soft rain, and maybe you can use this similarly in relation to milk or oil. So when you are cooking and you prepare the salad, you ask the person, do you want a lot of oil or do you want a little oil? And it's possible the person can say a drizzle of oil, which means a very, very little. The same with milk. When you pour milk into the tea or the coffee, you can have a drizzle. So it's a little flexible, but it's very typical in relation to rain. Okay, otherwise is very important here. So otherwise is like apart from this. So very spotty drizzle this morning. Apart from this, mainly is principally cloudy and milder. So mild is very good vocabulary. Mild is typical for the temperature. So you have cold, very hot, and then mild. Okay, so it's a very frequent and very flexible word, and it's typical in weather. And again, here we have the comparative, so it's milder than before. Okay, and again, more weather, warmer with morning sprinkles, very, very good vocabulary, and it will stay cloudy. Stay has the same significance as remain. It will remain cloudy, high around 50. So sprinkles is very, very interesting, and it's typical with ice cream. When you buy an ice cream and the man or the woman, they put the sprinkles, it is the decoration on the ice cream. So the verb is to sprinkle. Okay, it's very typical in the garden when the ground is very dry. You need the machine with the water to spray the water, and that's a sprinkler. Okay, so the verb is to sprinkle, and in the garden, a sprinkler is the object to spread the water for the garden or for the flowers. And it's possible the verb to sprinkle. It's a little flexible. So in food, you can sprinkle. In magic, magic dust, polvo, magic dust, you can sprinkle. So in relation to rain, it's very similar for light rain. So we have a lot of vocabulary for light rain, heavy rain, and sprinkles is short, little quantities of rain. Okay, now we will begin the article. So here's the picture of the man, and this object is the bagpipe. So he's playing a bagpipe. So it's very logical in English because obviously you have the bag and the pipe. Okay, so it's the bagpipe, and yeah, it's very typical in Scotland as well, and maybe Northern Ireland, and sometimes in Ireland. Okay, so here is the first paragraph. So New York City was not in celebratory spirit last St. Patrick's Day. The timing couldn't have been worse. Okay, bars, restaurants, and schools were closed, and the mayor had floated the possibility of a shelter in place. Okay, so first, the difficult pronunciation is celebratory. Okay, so this is a suffix, and it's like satisfactory. So it's an adjective, but with a spirit, we typically use the preposition in. So, for example, you are in good spirits, you are in bad spirits, and the significance is you are very happy, you are feeling very good, in good mood is very, very typical as well. So the preposition in is used for spirits, and the significance is you are very happy. So you are in good spirits, you are in a good mood, and very typical in Ireland or in England, the expression in good form. So you are in good form means you are very happy, you're feeling good. So you're in good form or you're in bad form. Very, very typical in conversation and very, very common. Okay, and here is a very difficult structure, but it's a very good example. So could is the possibility, the modal for possibility or option. And when we create the modal in the past, it's typical to use the structure have plus the participle. So it's a very difficult structure, but the modal in the past, for example, yesterday, well, in the present, I might go to the cinema, but yesterday I might have gone to the cinema. Okay, today it could rain, but yesterday it could have rained. So typically the modal in the past is difficult, and this is the example. And remember, worse is related to bad, so the adjective is good, better, the best, bad, worse, the worst. And this is a frequent error as well, because the difference between worse and the worst is very important for pronunciation, and the significance is completely different, but it's a very common confusion. So bad, worse than, and the worst. Okay, so that is an interesting example, and here it was impossible, it couldn't have been worse, it was impossible to be worse. Okay, so it's a very good sentence, very important, very, very common. The mayor, so just the pronunciation of the Y, the mayor, and I think it's the same masculine or feminine. Maybe, no, mayoress, no, but it's typical. Mayor is possible masculine and feminine. And the next one is difficult as well. So the verb is to float. And here it's the participle. It's possible the past simple or the participle, the second column or the third column. For example, float, floated, floated. So we don't know, but we look and we see an extra auxiliary verb have, and it's the past with the participle. So this represents the past perfect. And you remember, the past perfect is the period of time in the past, usually before another action in the past simple. So the past simple is closed. So the restaurants were closed is the past simple, and the past perfect is floating the possibility. So it's very creative example and very advanced, but to float the possibility or to float the idea is very, very advanced. So to float the idea, typical the verb to float is related to water. So you enter the water and you float, como flotar in Espanol, and it's possible to float the idea. which has the significance or a metaphor that you introduce the idea or that you show the idea. So to float the idea is to show or to introduce the idea. It's a very, very good verb, and it's the same with the possibility. So you have a possibility and you want to tell people the possibility. So to float the idea, so to create or to show the possibility or the idea. Shelter is very, very important vocabulary. It's possible a verb and it's possible a noun, and the significance is to cover. So it's typical with the bus. You have to wait for the bus and you have to wait in the shelter, okay, because you have protection from the rain, protection from the drizzle, protection from the spotty rain. So you need a bus shelter. So the verb to shelter is to protect, and it's possible to shelter children. Okay, you can shelter children, you can shelter animals, and it's very typical as well, the dog shelter. So where did you buy the dog? Where did you get the dog? Where did you obtain the dog? You got the dog, you obtained the dog in the dog shelter. Okay, so again, it's typical for the bus shelter, and it's typical for homeless people. When people have no home and they live on the street, they need some shelter. Okay, so it's very, very good. And in New York for the pandemic, they had the instruction, or they had the order to shelter in your stay at home. So it's a very advanced way to say stay at home. Okay, so very good paragraph. The next paragraph, St. Patrick's Day parade organizers announced. So there's my pronunciation of the OU, announced, and sometimes it's different for other people. They would, and it's the past simple, ed, regular, past simple. They would postpone, and I'll just move my screen, okay, postpone the celebration. So here it's the conditional with would, and it's related to the verb postpone, which is very, very good vocabulary, and also a lot of phrasal verbs related to postpone the celebration. But a small group marched in the wee hours. So wee is very, very interesting vocabulary, to preserve the tradition. Now, after a year of virtual celebrations that replaced New York City's usual rousing parades, the St. Patrick's Day event makes a humble appearance today. It won't have the large-scale fanfare New Yorkers are used to, okay, but it will maintain, or it will keep. So maintain is similar to keep and to stay, but here it's possible to maintain or to keep. Stay is not possible here. A more than 250-year-old tradition as the oldest uninterrupted, so it's a negative, uninterrupted parade in the world. So not too difficult. These two paragraphs are not too difficult. The first example is the verb to announce. It's very formal, it's very typical for business, and it's very typical for family. So if you have something important to say, if you have some important news, the typical verb is to announce. So the company announce a special offer, the government announce new restrictions or new ideas, and the family, the girl or the boy, announces he is pregnant. Well, not he, but he or she is pregnant, or they are getting married. So the verb is to announce, and the substantivo or the noun is announcement. Okay, so the verb is to announce, and the noun is announcement. Okay, so very, very interesting vocabulary, and very, very important. Marched in the wee hours. Okay, so wee hours is very typical in Ireland, probably very specific vocabulary in Ireland or in, but of course it's used in England, it's used in the United States, and it means very small. Okay, I think originally it's from the north of Ireland. So a wee man has a significance, a small man, sorry, a small child. Okay, so a wee man is a young baby, a young boy, a young girl, and the wee girl is the same, a small young girl. And it's possible in Northern Ireland, you could say the Wains, and I think that's the correct spelling, but the significance are the children in Northern Ireland. So the Wains is a very informal but very, very common word for children in the north part of Ireland. And wee is very, very small, but for this significance, it's possible the wee hours. And the wee hours are the small hours in the morning. So for example, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, they are the wee hours. So you go to the party and you return home at the wee hours of the morning. Okay, so it's very, very important. But there is another verb that's typical as well, to wee, and I think that's in relation to urinate. So to go to the toilet, it's possible to wee. I think it's informal, but it's the same pronunciation for sure, and it's the technical verb is to urinate. Okay, so it's to go to the bathroom, to go to the toilet, has the verb to wee, and also, so it's very, very important, the wee hours. Okay, and the next paragraph I think is very understandable, very, very clear, nothing too difficult. Rousing is maybe more advanced and more difficult. So rousing is like very entertaining, very dramatic, very motivational. So if you hear a rousing speech, okay, a discurso, a speech is typical from the politician, from the celebrity, they give a speech. And if it's rousing, it will motivate the people, it will encourage the people. So very rousing is very motivational, okay, or very celebratory, or very exciting. And here, the parades are very, very animated, very exciting. Everybody's very happy. Everybody's really, really thrilled. Okay, there's another word, thrilled, rousing, but it's very specific, very advanced, and very good vocabulary. Okay, a humble appearance. So humble is very important vocabulary. If the person is very humble, the opposite is maybe very arrogant. So the person's very arrogant, but the other person's very humble. Okay, humilde in Espanol, and it's flexible and very common in English. It's possible humble beginnings. So you started from humble beginnings, which means very ordinary, very normal, nothing special, nothing expensive, nothing dramatic, just very humble beginnings, or very humble person. So very, very good vocabulary. And the noun is humility. Okay, so humble is the adjective, humble person, and humility is the noun. And we have an expression, to eat humble pie, is a very, very typical expression, and it's used in the situation when the person is incorrect and the person is wrong and the person made an error, but especially before they were very confident and they were very sure and maybe very arrogant. So after they are incorrect, they need to eat humble pie. It's obviously a metaphor, and you don't have to physically eat the pie, but it's a very famous expression, to eat humble pie. Okay. Large scale is a good adjective, and you can see the hyphen. So the intention and the function of the hyphen is to connect two different words, so large and scale, and the significance is very, very big. Okay, so it's large scale, and then fanfare is like typical music or typical noise for the celebration. So if there is a lot of fanfare, it's maybe music from the band for a party. And in the parade in St. Patrick's Day, there's obviously a lot of music and a lot of celebration and a lot of fanfare. So very good vocabulary. New York is obviously the location and the place, but a New Yorker is the person, and New Yorkers is the people in plural. So just a little detail. Are used to. So here the significance is used to, which means accustomed to. And you remember last week in the grammar, the difference to be used to get used to, or I used to plus the infinitive. Okay, so there's a big difference between the three. So to be used to has the significance to be accustomed to. The first example, I am used to the weather, I am used to the traffic, I am used to the restrictions. The significance is accustomed to. The second one, to get used to, has the significance to become. Okay, it's the process. So you get used to the weather, you become used to, you become accustomed to. So there's a difference to be used to and to get used to. And then the third example is completely different. It's for the activity you did in the past, but not today. So I used to visit the gym, but not today, not anymore. I used to go to the cinema, but no more. Okay, so here it's the significance accustomed to. So they are familiar with, because every year they have the celebration, every year they have the big party, so they are used to it, or used to the party. Okay, And I think that's a good paragraph. And maybe one more paragraph. So you won't get lost. So what to expect this year? You won't get lost in a sea of green outfits. Organizers planned a very low profile ceremonial march to keep the tradition alive without risking a super spreader event. Okay, details on the small march were kept under wraps to keep the crowds from gathering. So a very interesting paragraph. And the first expression is to get lost. So we have two possibilities: to be lost and to get lost. Okay, and it's from the verb to lose. The past is lost, past simple, and the noun is the loss. Okay, so there's a little difference between get lost and be lost. So the first example is in the city. So imagine you are in a new city and you visit a new city, and suddenly you do not know your orientation, you do not know the location, so you are lost. Okay, the verb to be, you are lost. Or maybe in mathematics or in a subject, asignatura, a subject in school, Japanese, it's very difficult for you and you are lost, you have no idea. But to get lost is maybe the process to become. So there's a small difference between the process and the actual sensation. Okay, it's the same with be, it's the sensation, it's the feeling, it's the fact, and get is maybe to become or the process. Okay, and also get lost is a little insult. So there's two possibilities. The first possibility, you enter the city, you travel to a new location, and you become, or the process, you become lost. You lose your orientation. But the second example is a little insult or a little instruction or an order. So if somebody comes to you and you don't want to speak to the person is annoying you, you say go away, or you can say get lost, which has the same significance to go away. So that's extremely typical in informal situations, but very, very frequent. Okay, so the significance is to go away, which is an order, like get lost. Okay, get lost. Very typical in movies, very typical in lots of situations. Okay, and then outfit. So of course the verb is to fit. So for example, my jacket, it fits me. My shirt, it fits me. In Espanol, cabe. And the outfit is the name for all the clothes. So my outfit today is very Irish. I have my shamrock, which has disappeared. So my shamrock, my badge, my green tie. This is my Irish outfit today. So outfit is typical for all the clothes that you wear. And of course on Instagram, on Twitter, it's very popular, the hashtag outfits of the day, etc. Okay. And here, very low profile ceremonial march. So march is the noun and the adjective is low profile. Two adjectives, low profile and ceremonial. So you can see the suffix ceremony is the noun and ceremonial is the adjective. But low profile is very, very flexible adjective. The person is very low profile. The event is very low profile. And the significance is very quiet, very humble, very similar synonym for humble. And here it's also possible a humble march, like no attention, no fanfare, no dramatics, just very low profile. And it's possible that person, if the person is very famous, a celebrity, but they want to live a very low profile life, they just want to live an ordinary life. So very, very good vocabulary. To keep, the structure here is to keep somebody alive or to keep something alive. So they want to keep the tradition alive. And here without, typically after the preposition without, we have the ing. Okay, without knowing, without going, without visiting, without seeing, without speaking. So typically after without, we have the ing. Okay, and here we have a very common word for 2021, a common word for this year. So we have the article and the noun and event, and normally we have an because the noun begins with a vowel, but in this case the adjective begins with an S, so it's not necessarily an. But here we have two words, super and spread. Okay, so the first verb that's very important is to spread, and it's typical with Nutella. So every time, this example is the same. So Nutella, in English, we call chocolate spread, because the action with the Nutella, you have the knife and you take the Nutella and the bread and you spread the Nutella. It's the same with the butter. When you have the butter, you spread the butter, okay? But this verb is very flexible because, for example, Irish people at the moment are spread around the world. So they are in very different locations. So it's very, very important vocabulary. And in relation to the virus and the pandemic, it's possible to spread the virus, which is maybe to put the virus in other locations. But a super spreader event is obviously an event that creates an incredible quantity, an incredible amount of spreading of the virus. It's a very typical expression for this year. And the next expression, which is very important, two more, and to keep under wraps. So first, the verb is to keep. The past simple is kept. So keep, kept, kept. It's irregular, so keep and kept. And the expression is under wraps. Okay, so the verb to wrap in Espanol is envolver. So at Christmas, you wrap the present. Okay, in the winter, it's very, very cold. So you need yourself to wrap up, to wear a scarf, to wear a hat, to wear gloves, to wrap up. Okay, to wrap up warm means to stay healthy. Typical in the movie, to wrap up has the significance to finish. So at the end of the meeting, the person says, now it's time to wrap up. So you finish everything and the meeting is finished. That's the significance. And in the movies, they say that's a wrap. And the significance is everything is finished, because you can package the movie and you can send the movie. So that's a wrap, means it's finished. Also, the more typical situation is for food. So you go to the restaurant and you order a wrap, a chicken wrap, or at home you make in the kitchen a chicken wrap. But it's the same concept to wrap. Okay. And to wrap up warm, but the expression to keep under wraps is a very, very, very good expression, very advanced but very fluent. And it's like to keep a secret. So to keep under wraps is like to not tell anybody. It's a secret because this is the idea, this is the project, this is the plan, but you want to hide the plan from the other people. So you want to maintain the plan under wraps. So protect or hide. So the significance is like to hide or a secret. Very, very good English, very advanced, very fluent, and a very good example of use of English. Okay, hide or secret plan. Because in this case, the parade in New York, the authorities want to hide the details. They want to keep the details secret, because if the details are public, this will attract more people, and it's very risky and very dangerous with the pandemic. Okay, so very, very good vocabulary. And the final expression is the verb to gather. And yesterday we explained the verb to gather. It's like to collect. So you are in your office and you want to gather your things. You want to collect your things. In your mind, you are thinking a lot and you need time to gather your thoughts. Very, very famous. And here it's the verb gathering, to come together. Typical for the family. The family gather for a party or for a celebration or for a birthday. Okay, really, really good. So that's a good example of vocabulary and everything, and grammar. So remember, today we have a webinar at 4 o'clock in relation to IELTS. Also, this is information. So yes, it's free. Everything is very, very free. I'm very happy to hopefully help you, and hopefully this is beneficial for you, and hopefully you are learning a lot. I really hope this is the case, because with technology, it's really incredible to reach a lot of people and to teach online. So I'm very, very happy to do this. If you want to help me, and if you want to support me, and if you want to donate a little tip to me, it would be a great help and great support for me. It's possible with the application in Spain, Bizum, but some people have the problem with the telephone number in Ireland. If this is the case, you can contact me. Also in Ireland with Revolut, the application is very popular, and if you want to make a small donation of maybe €1 or €2 to support me, it would be a very, very big help. And also finally, the bank details. If you prefer a direct bank transfer, there's the bank details here that are possible. and the IBAN and the BIC. And finally, with PayPal, there is the possibility to transfer maybe €1 or €2 or £1, or if you're in a different country with different currency, it's possible as well, a very small quantity to help me. Okay, and that's would be very, very good. And remember, today we have a specific webinar at 4 o'clock in relation to the IELTS exam, so you are welcome to join. Just contact me if you want to reserve or confirm your place, and it's on Zoom for approximately 1 hour, and I'm looking forward, I'm very excited to continue with the IELTS exam to give the webinar. Okay, so that is today, and that is everything. So remember, on social media we have all the connections and all the links. Also, if you want to participate now for practice some speaking, it's a very good opportunity. So I think we have maybe 1 or 2 people in the group. So obviously I don't know who this person is with the name, but if you want to participate, if you want to ask a question, if you want to practice some speaking, you can raise your hand with the option on Zoom, the option to raise your hand or the option to comment, and you can ask a question or to participate. So if this person, if you want to participate, just contact me in the chat and you are ready and available to talk. But remember, everybody, that we have the Instagram account @miglioreinglés, and I have some pictures on Instagram, and also Twitter. We have the Twitter account, which is the same material more or less as the Facebook page. And finally, the YouTube channel has the same content as the free classes on Facebook Live. So now I will just chat in the group and see if this person, I'm going to type a question, would you like to speak? Okay, so would you like to speak is the question, and maybe the person will respond. So I hope everybody has a very good St. Patrick's Day. It's very different day this year because normally we have a lot of celebration in Dublin, and normally a lot of people visit Ireland on St. Patrick's Day, but for the week. So normally it's a very typical celebration for the week, and of course last year was different, no celebration, and well, no, not the same celebration, and this year it's not the same also, but a lot of events will be online. It's a very good day to celebrate Irish culture and everything green, which is the typical theme. So of course I have my tie, my badge, and the shamrock, which is very typical. So I don't think we have the participants today, which is a pity, but thank you very much, everybody, and I hope that you enjoyed the class. We had no problem with the connection, I hope, and I think everything was more or less okay. And keep in contact. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you have any questions, you can ask me a question directly, and I will put the notes from the class below the Facebook page, below the Facebook video on the Facebook page. And thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.